Picture this. You're scrolling through YouTube, searching for inspiration to embrace your natural hair journey. Suddenly, you discover a channel that feels like sitting down with your best friend. Warm, encouraging, and genuinely passionate about helping others feel beautiful in their own skin. The creator's smile radiates through the screen as she shares tips, tricks, and encouragement. Her username, Nap Queen. Her real name, Shayna Donahue. But what if I told you that behind those encouraging videos and that infectious positivity lay a story that would end in unimaginable tragedy? What if the very person who was supposed to protect her would become the one to silence her voice forever? Today, we're diving deep into a case that shook the natural hair community and left thousands of followers mourning not just a content creator, but a beacon of hope who dedicated her life to nurturing others, both online and in her Washington D.C. community.
Story time. So let's tell the story of the time that I damaged my hair to the...
Shayna wasn't just building an empire on YouTube with over 21,000 devoted followers. By day, she walked the halls of elementary schools in some of DC's most underserved neighborhoods, teaching children about nutrition and healthy eating habits. She understood something profound. True beauty starts from within, and that means feeding both your hair and your body with intention and care. Growing up in Washington, D.C., Shayna witnessed firsthand how diet-related diseases ravaged her family. This painful experience became her driving force. She was determined to break generational cycles by educating the next generation about nutrition, gardening, and food literacy. She wasn't just teaching kids to eat vegetables. She was planting seeds of knowledge that could transform entire communities. But here's where our story takes a turn that no one could have predicted. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life isn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. It's someone who claims to love you, someone who knows exactly how to hurt you the most. What happens when high school sweethearts reconnect after years apart? What happens when forgiveness becomes a weapon and second chances become fatal mistakes? Daniel Fleetwood wasn't just any ex-boyfriend. He was Shayna's first love, her high school sweetheart from Oxon Hill High School. Picture those teenage romance movies where young couples promise they'll love each other forever. That was them. When Shayna left for college in South Carolina on a basketball scholarship, Daniel was right there, helping her father move her into her dorm room. Sweet, right? But here's the thing about first loves. They rarely stay first loves for good reason. After 3 years apart, after growing into different people, after learning who they were outside of each other, they found their way back. Or did they? In 2020, Shayna made what seemed like a romantic gesture, but would prove to be the most dangerous decision of her life. She posted on Twitter, and I'm paraphrasing here, about how no one would love her like her ex-fiancé loved her. She talked about them being the most forgivable people they knew, claiming there was never any hate between them. But forgiveness without accountability, that's not love, that's enabling. Shayna's colleagues at Fresh Farm, where she worked as a nutrition educator, were shocked when they learned she had allowed Daniel to move into her apartment. You see, Shayna had previously broken off their engagement and had even complained to co-workers about Daniel's abusive behavior. Her supervisor, Jennifer Mampara, would later reveal that Shayna had confided in her about the abuse. So why did she let him back in? Why do any of us make decisions that our friends and family can see are dangerous from the outside? Sometimes love isn't love at all. Sometimes it's trauma bonding, manipulation, or the dangerous belief that we can change someone who doesn't want to change. The warning signs were flashing like a neon billboard, but when you're in the eye of the storm, you can't always see the destruction swirling around you. May 28, 2020, a Thursday that started like any other, but would end in ways that still haunt everyone who knew Shayna. What exactly happened in that Southeast D.C. apartment that night? The only two people who know the complete truth are Daniel Fleetwood and Shayna Donahue, but only one of them lived to tell their version of events. The evening of May 27th began with an argument. Not just any argument, neighbors would later describe hearing a loud fight coming from Shayna's apartment. Loud enough that someone felt compelled to call 911. But by the time help could arrive, it would be too late. When the sun rose on May 28th, a concerned neighbor went to check on Shayna. What they discovered would forever change how we think about domestic violence and the deadly escalation that can happen when someone decides that if they can't have you, no one can. Police arrived to find a scene so horrific that seasoned officers were visibly shaken. Shayna's body was discovered in a fetal position near a glass table, a defensive position that tells us she knew what was coming. The medical examiner would later document the extent of her injuries: stab wounds to her neck, stomach, right bicep, right thigh, hip, and shoulder blade. But it wasn't just stabbing. There were bite marks on her right wrist and evidence of strangulation. This wasn't a crime of passion that lasted seconds. This was sustained violence. This was torture. Blood painted a story of desperation across the apartment. On the door, on the walls, on both a knife and scissors. 2 weapons, multiple opportunities for Daniel to stop, to choose differently, to walk away. Instead, he chose escalation. But here's where this case takes an even more disturbing turn. As police were processing this horrific crime scene, Daniel Fleetwood walked into the apartment. His clothes were soaked in blood. Not his blood, but Shayna's. And his first words to police? He asked to speak to Shaina, claiming that afterward he could explain everything. Imagine the audacity. Imagine the disconnect from reality. The woman he had just brutally murdered was lying lifeless feet away, and he was asking to speak to her, as if she could somehow respond. When detectives took Daniel to headquarters for questioning, his explanation would reveal a mindset so twisted, so devoid of accountability, that it still sends chills down the spine of everyone who heard it. What could possibly justify such brutal violence? What story could he tell that would make any of this make sense? The answer, as you'll soon discover, reveals the true monster lurking behind the mask of a man who claimed to love her. In the sterile interrogation room at D.C. Police Headquarters, Daniel Fleetwood sat across from detectives and began weaving a story that would expose the depths of his manipulation and violence. What came out of his mouth wasn't remorse. It was justification wrapped in victim blaming and misogyny. According to Daniel's version of events, the fight started when Shaina ordered him to leave the apartment. He claimed they began pushing each other, and then, here's where his story becomes particularly insidious, he alleged that Shaina stabbed him first with scissors, and that he was merely defending himself. But here's what Daniel told investigators that reveals his true character. She tried to get me really angry on purpose, and I don't know why. It's like a thing all women have. She was trying to get me upset. Let that sink in for a moment. Even while confessing to murder, he's blaming all women for some imagined conspiracy to make men angry. This isn't self-defense. This is someone who fundamentally believes that women exist to antagonize men, and that violence is a justified response to that antagonization. But Daniel wasn't finished revealing his twisted worldview. He continued, "A man has to die to be truly in love. I never had this done before. I think it's a devilish type thing. It's hard to explain. I can see it when you are in a relationship with a girl. It's like a psych thing." These aren't the words of someone defending themselves. These are the words of someone who has constructed an entire philosophy around controlling and ultimately destroying the women in their lives. Then came the admission that would haunt everyone who heard it. Daniel told detectives that while he claimed they began stabbing each other, Shaina stopped. But he continued, and his explanation for why he didn't stop. "It was like something in me, like the demon in me wanted to kill, and once I killed her, I came alive." He came alive when she died. Let that echo in your mind for a moment. This wasn't a moment of temporary insanity or a tragic accident. This was someone discovering that he felt most powerful when he was taking a life. Daniel also admitted to using marijuana and alcohol before the incident, but substances don't create monsters. They simply remove the mask that was already there. The evidence told a different story than Daniel's claims of mutual combat and self-defense. The brutality, the multiple weapons, the sustained nature of the attack. This was an execution, not a fight. When Daniel Fleetwood's case first went to court, his defense attorney attempted to paint this brutal murder as a domestic situation that clearly got out of hand, arguing for his release based on his lack of prior criminal history. The audacity of claiming this calculated violence was simply a situation that got out of hand, demonstrates how the legal system often minimizes domestic violence, even when it escalates to murder. For years, Shayna's family and friends waited for justice. The case crawled through the legal system, with delays for DNA testing and various legal maneuvers. But those who loved Shayna never stopped fighting for her memory, never stopped demanding accountability. Then, in a significant development, Daniel Fleetwood pleaded guilty to second-degree murder while armed on May 29, 2024. This plea came after years of legal proceedings and represented a crucial admission of guilt from someone who had initially tried to claim self-defense. On December 13, 2024, Judge Maribeth Rafinan sentenced Daniel Fleetwood to 20 years of imprisonment, calling the killing shocking and brutal. 20 years. For some, this might seem like justice served. For others, no amount of time could ever equal the life that was stolen, the dreams that were destroyed, the communities that lost an advocate. But here's what's important to understand. Shayna's story didn't end with her murder. Her impact continued to ripple through the natural hair community, through the schools where she taught nutrition, through the lives of the children she inspired to eat healthier and grow their own food. Her YouTube channel, where she encouraged thousands of women to embrace their natural beauty, remains a testament to her positive impact. Her work in underserved communities continues to inspire other educators and advocates. Shayna's supervisor, Jennifer Mampara, said something profound after her death. Shayna would be remembered for her love of the young people she worked with, her profound enthusiasm, her support for the neighborhood where she grew up, and her efforts to make people stronger and healthier. That's the real tragedy here, not just that a beautiful life was cut short, but that so much potential good was stolen from the world. As we close this story, I want you to remember Shayna not for how she died, but for how she lived. In her own words, she wanted to be remembered as a genuinely kind person, and by all accounts, that's exactly who she was. But Shayna's story is more than just a tragic tale. It's a mirror that reflects the epidemic of domestic violence that claims the lives of women every single day. Shayna's case highlights something crucial. Domestic violence doesn't always look like what we expect. It doesn't always happen to women who seem vulnerable or who come from certain backgrounds. Shayna was educated, successful, building her own empire, beloved by her community. She was strong, but strength doesn't make you immune to manipulation, abuse, or violence from someone you trust. The warning signs were there. Shayna had even confided in co-workers about Daniel's previous abuse. She had broken off their engagement. She knew something was wrong, but understanding abuse and being able to safely escape it are two completely different things. The most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim is often when they're trying to leave. What happened to Shayna wasn't about love gone wrong. It was about power and control. When Daniel realized he couldn't control Shayna anymore, when she demanded he leave her apartment and her life, he chose the ultimate act of control, taking her life. Shayna's light was extinguished far too soon, but her impact continues to shine. Every child she taught about nutrition who grows up healthier, every woman who found confidence through her natural hair tutorials, every person inspired by her story to recognize the warning signs of abuse, that's Shayna's true legacy. In her final YouTube video, Shayna thanked her viewers for their love and support, saying that YouTube was such a good platform because so many people without hesitation just support and love and feel just genuine good feelings from watching people's content. That's how we honor Shayna's memory, by spreading genuine love, by supporting each other, and by never staying silent when we see someone in danger. Her voice was silenced, but her message lives on. Be kind, be genuine, and never underestimate the power you have to make someone else's life better. Rest in power, Nap Queen. Your crown will never be forgotten.